if you're in sales, I mean, especially financial services, it is such a high rate of challenge and adversity. It is tough to get up off that mat of life. But getting up off that mat of life is a choice. And the moment you get lemon, you can't just make lemonade. You got to have a plan to execute to go sell the heck out of it. And people, that's where they forget. It's, I got lemons. I'm going to go make the lemonade. But you better go do something with that lemonade. Don't just go make the lemonade.
I'm Kristen Andre, founder and chief strategist of Andre Consulting Group. I founded my company almost 10 years ago because I love helping people not only succeed, but thrive in their careers and their lives. So many times I meet amazing people who have so much more potential than what they're utilizing. As I engage with them, there seems to be a common theme: the limits they place on themselves. Throughout this podcast series, we're going to visit some incredible people who have created more intentional lives for themselves, those who've had that no limits moment where they chose to grow and they put things in motion to help them do so. We'll focus on how you can break through limits, we'll equip you with strategies to help you lead a more intentional life, and we'll have a lot of fun along the way. So let's dive in. Everyone, and welcome to No Limits with Kristen Andre. We are here today with Ben Newman, who is a performance coach and old friend of mine. So I am super excited to have you on the show. So
I couldn't be any more excited. And the old friend is the key. We go back like 15 years. This will be fun.
I think it may even be longer than that. It was like early 2000. So back in our prior world before both of us started coaching.
Exactly. It's pretty wild. And I remember when you had originally left St. Louis, I actually took your office. So all my positive energy that I had going in St. Louis was going to be you.
Came from office. That's what it was. I'll take all the credit. No, I'm just playing. No, it's cool because I've been watching your career evolve, because obviously you were in the financial industry and crushing it in the financial industry, and similar to me, kind of said, all right, you know what, I think I can have a bigger impact out there in the world. So. But one of the things that always struck me about you is and this was obviously the topic of your first book with legacy, is you're 100% about leaving a legacy. So not just going and doing great things, but really leaving your mark. So share with us kind of your background, because it's so cool.
Yeah. So, for me, I know that we all face challenge, we all face adversity, and how we choose to respond to that challenge and adversity in our lives really determines the story that we write, the legacy that we leave behind, the lessons that people learn from us, because the little people in our lives, if you have children or significant others or friends, they watch our behavior, they watch how we respond, and they're going to go write a story of their own. And for me, I had to overcome challenge and adversity fast in life. My parents were divorced when I was 6 months old, never knew them together. And in 1983, my mother was diagnosed with a rare muscle disease called amyloidosis. So each and every single one of us, all of your listeners, you, me, we all have amyloids in our muscle. And if you have an excess of them, you have a disease called amyloidosis. So there was no cure. My mother sought specialists in Boston. And the reality was that, amyloidosis was going to take my mother's life. And we didn't know how long she would live. And she was told she had 2 to 4 years to live. She was the second woman under 40 having the disease. Yet she kept this journal. And the journal was where she unleashed her positive mental attitude onto the world. She would write, beat the statistic, beat the odds, live with the disease that's chronic and fatal, believe in yourself, combat anything, purpose in life. And even though I was just a young boy, I remember when my mom would come to the dinner table with an IV stand. We had 24-hour nursing care in the back of our house. Literally, my mom's little TV room was turned into a hospital, and she'd come to the dinner table to ask me how my day was at school. So the thing I now recognize is that we can fight through all challenge and adversity in our lives. And my mom taught me, if you're dying from a disease called amyloidosis, which was the reality, and she could make it to the dinner table, I could fight through somebody telling me no in business.
Right.
And November 2nd, 1986, my mother took the pen that she was writing with in that journal, and she passed it on to my brother and I to keep writing her story. And that's what fuels my passion every day, is the opportunity to leave a story and an example for my kids, but also for the opportunity to touch the people that we're blessed to work with every day.
And I've always been so, and I cried everything. So you can see me getting cut to Ben because I'm getting teary eyed. But that story's always stuck out to me because what was inspiring to me. I mean, I know it was different for you watching your mom go through that. But what always stood out to me when I've heard this story and heard you tell it is she made a conscious choice to focus on the good stuff and to be positive and to pass that along to you and to your brother. And so I think that's just not everybody does that. Not everybody just says, hey, you know what? I'm going to figure out what's good and what I can learn from this and what we can take from it.
Well, two things to touch on, and one of them you just captured. But number one, we all have a story, right? That's my story. That's where I fuel that, my fire, my passion. And you know me, we've known each other a long time. I'm an emotional guy. I cry when I watch Extreme Home Makeovers. So, for me, I recognize we all have a story, and that story oftentimes gives us perspective that we can fight through anything. But what you captured, which is the greatest life lesson I've ever learned, which came from my mom, it's not how long you live, it's how you choose to live your life. And we all know the things that we need to do to be successful. Yep. Those that are listening, if you're a financial advisor, you know what your best days look like, right? If you're an entrepreneur, you know the things that you need to do every single day. If you're an athlete, you know what you need to do every day. But it's the days we don't choose to do what we know we need to do that we feel like we haven't left our best selves out there.
Right. Absolutely. And there was a quote, we used to say it all the time, but that successful people habitually do what others are unwilling to do. And it's just creating those habits and doing it over and over again. So, all right. So you stepped away from finance and started coaching. And I think it's so cool. You work with some pretty big names in the world of sports, which is not my area of expertise at all, but you've really not just working with individuals, which I know you do at very high levels, you're really coming in and trying to send that message to a team, to a group or an organization.
Yeah, and it's a big blessing. When I left financial services, obviously I had big dreams and big goals and things that I wanted to do. And, I think there's been a lot of luck that's come from some of the courageous action steps I've taken. I've gotten some lucky responses. But, it's really turned into taking that courage and going after those big things that we're capable of achieving. I mean, in 2014, I sent a street sign to Nick Saban based off of a quote that he made in a press conference where he said to a reporter, I don't think you understand me. When I do something, I do it better than anybody else. If I were a street sweeper, there'd be a sign out in front of my house that says the best street sweeper in the world lives right here. So I had a street sign made for Nick Saban, and I sent it to Saban. It was big, it was orange, it was obnoxious, and it literally said the best street sweeper in the world lives right here. Yeah. And I knew, if you want to get to Nick Saban, you can't just send a letter. You better send a sign where he goes, what is in that box? And you know what? He responded, and we became pen pals, and I would send him books. And here 4 years later, I just signed my contract. It'll be my second year this upcoming season as a mental conditioning coach for Alabama. And so, you just have to take action based upon the things that you believe in. And there's so many people, and Kristen, you know this with all your coaching work, right? We meet somebody where they are and they're like, I carry around this list and it's my dream list. Like one day, I hope they're going to
fall in my lap. Exactly.
Right? It's like, wait a second. What if we change that from a dream list to an action list? So I just believe, take the courageous action every day, separate yourself from the results, and you're going to do some things that are going to blow your mind.
Well, it's funny because it struck me a minute ago when you said, well, I've had some lucky things. You hadn't had lucky things. You've just been out there. And it's like the street sign's an example. And I remember you and I having lunch some years back, and there was, I don't know if it was one of your MMA guys or something that you're like, no, I tweeted them. I sent a message to them. It's just, these are normal people. If you've got some gift to give them or some way to help them or be a resource, do that. Reach out, but stand out and be different. Don't just be one of the millions trying to get their attention.
So I got to capture this because it's a great memory, and it actually speaks to you mentioning that yes, because I believe big, and I say this very humbly, but I put action behind it. And I want everybody to know, I'm not saying, hey, look at me, here's another champion that I work with, but I want you to know, if you believe big and put the action, you're going to write an amazing story and work with people that you're going to learn so much from. And that's the blessing. I learned so much from Alabama. It's like, I can't believe they pay me. I should be paying you guys, right? Yeah. And so I love that memory you bring up, because that day, I don't know if you know, but that night,
I remember.
that my dear friend Tyron Woodley, he became the UFC welterweight champion of the world. And here we are 2 years later. I was in Atlanta when he beat Robbie Lawler, so we had lunch. Yep. And he wins the belt that night. Here we are 2 years later. He still has that belt.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that's interesting is whether it's in business or in sports, when you believe really big, like he did when he was an amateur, and he put the action and the belief for 13 years it took for him to become the champion. And now nobody can take away that belt because he continues to put in that hard work every single day.
And that's where I feel like a lot of people don't realize that most people at that level and that are reaching championship level, they didn't fall there. They put in work and repeatedly. And that's what I love about kind of the people you're working with and those folks I get to work with is they do it over and over and over again, and good things happen. But if they're doing it to really make a mark and to help other people, but you got to put yourself out there.
And, one of the individuals that you've had on the show before, and I watched the interview, and I mean, it's just tremendous the results he's had, is John White. And, John White, that's a guy, I've had conversations with him, and we've talked about things in the past. There's an individual, he just shows up every day and does his job.
Yep.
And so many people, they want
humble
this magic
guy
bullet. Yeah, it's like, oh, Kristen, well, hopefully in this episode you'll give away the magic bullet because I know it's in that bottom drawer.
Yeah.
Like today's going to be the day, and it's like, no, like, it's just letting you know, like, believe in something and just show up one day at a time and give your best. That's all.
Yep.
Because if you do that, if you show up one day at a time and give your best, nobody can ever take that away from you.
Yeah.
And nobody can ever ask any more of you than giving your best just one day at a time.
And it sounds like giving your best wouldn't be that hard. I mean, we all know what our best is. I don't think we always push for it or push past it, but which is where coaching comes in handy and accountability groups and having the right people around you. If people are continually pushing for better and better and better, good things happen. It's just keeping the focus on it and knowing what it is you're going for.
Yeah, so I'll share a quick story. I work with a small boutique financial firm in Greenville, South Carolina, and they've given me permission to share the story. I'm there every single year. I've been there 5 years in a row. And in January of 18, I'm there, and we're kind of going around, and we're talking about goals, and we were focused on assets under management for this particular goal. 5 advisors in this boutique firm, and we go around, and we add up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It was 80 million. Okay. And they're like, our goal's 80 million. We've never done 80 million. It's going to be incredible. We're going to bring in 80 million of money. And I just kind of take a step back. I love helping people think bigger. And I said, wow. I said, 80 million. That's so close to 100 million. And
that's where my head was going too. I was like,
and they look at me like, no, don't do it. Like, stop. Don't pull your shenanigans with us. Like, don't make us think bigger. 80 million big. And then I asked them the question. I said, before you decide to change or to keep your 80 million, which is a big goal.
Yep.
I said, tell me, what are all of the terrible, awful, horrible things that are going to happen if you go for 100 million? And it was like silence.
Yeah, because there's not any.
Let me take a pause in the story for everybody, who's with Kristen and I right now. Like, think, are you protecting yourself with your goals, or have you really gone for it? Because if you really go for it, nothing bad happens.
Yep. So
they go back around and they say, all right, we'll reformulate our goals. They go back around. They did 110 million was their goal. So they said, we're going to do 110 million. I was just like, all right, now we're talking, right? It wasn't even 100. They went for 110. So that was nice. January of 2018. The principal of their firm, I was just there January 9th of this year. He calls me on January the 8th. He says, I couldn't wait for you to get to town. I got to give you the big reveal before you get here. He says, we did 116 million.
Nice. That's awesome.
116 between 5 advisors. And he said, for me personally, and this is where I think the connection point for all the listeners will be, because when people hear that, they're like, okay, Kristen, here's another example where you're going to ask me to ask God for a 36-hour workday, and I got to do it 7 days a week. And the principal of the firm says to me, he said, Ben, here's the crazy thing. My goal was 45 million. And he said, I did 61 million myself. And he said, when you were here a year ago, I asked you, what do you think we need to do for me to have the highest probability of getting there? And I said, if you show up twice a day, I said, I firmly believe this. If you show up twice a day, 2 times per day, every day, methodically, relentlessly, and whatever it takes, every day, and you contact 2 A++ individuals a day, you will hit your 45 million. And he said, man, he goes, I can't believe I'm reporting to you that all it took was me showing up doing 2 to get to the 61 million. And he said it enabled me to zone in on being more intentional around the action that would drive higher levels of success. So that's the point, right? For all of us, like if I want to do different things or get to a more significant level, I have to be more consistent in the action after big thinking that causes us to get there. And then you just show up and do it every day.
And I think showing up is a big thing. So it's knowing what you want to hit. I agree, because my head went right there when I was 80. I'm like, 80, let's round to 100. I mean, that would have been exactly but we're programmed to think like that. That's just how he naturally thinks. So I love that story. I think it's great. So we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to dive into how we can apply this in your life and really start taking that thinking big and executing on it a little bit. So we'll be back in just a minute. Hey everyone, it's Kristen. Be sure and visit my website at www.andregroup.com. That's www.andreegroup.com. And while you're there, be sure to download my white paper, Top 10 Reasons Your Business Isn't Growing Fast Enough. Now get out there and create your no limits moment. Everyone, and welcome back to No Limits with Kristen Andre. We are here today with my friend Ben Newman, who is a performance coach, author, speaker, all around good guy, who is also, as you mentioned earlier, coaching or helping work with the Alabama football team, which, Ben, I have a daughter at Georgia, so I was teasing Ben during the break was that I need him to kind of switch over to Georgia. Alabama's got a great team, but my Bulldogs could use a little bit of help, so they're doing good, but they need somebody in their ear, I think. So we're gonna put that on your prospect list. Make sure we can get them moving.
So. Considering they just signed me to another year of my contract, I gotta hold up.
I know. I'll hold out hope that you can help my Bulldogs down the road. But all right, so we had talked about, in the first segment, kind of how you reached out to Saban and really set yourself apart and did something a little bit different. And I feel like a lot of times with people, we have these big dreams and these big goals of like, I want to work with so-and-so. I mean, we all have that list of clients we would just love to have. But you put it into action, which is where I see the disconnect with a lot of people. It's like, I want to do this or I want to work with this person, but there's no step to get them there. There's no action. So talk to us a little bit about that and kind of your philosophy and what you do for yourself and your clients.
Yeah, so I'll give everybody an action step that you can implement starting like the minute that you finish watching this interview. And it's called the +1 concept. And many people are familiar with it. It's starting to kind of make its way around, which I love because I'm driven by something that's called immeasurable impact. So, I know you've mentioned there are people that you coach that use it. And so that just lights me up. So everybody, if you were to Google the +1 concept, so the plus sign, the number one, and then the word concept, there's a hidden page that pops up on our website. And it has a video. It's got a definition of the +1 concept. It's got 3 different pieces of language I've already written for you to use. You tweak it a little bit so that it applies to the person that you're reaching out to. But essentially, it's a way to take social media contacts and turn them into legitimate business prospects. And I love that we ended up going down the route of the Saban story, because if I already taught you how to get to Nick Saban, then anybody that you're connected to on social media, it's kind of easy, right?
Yeah.
So it's just choosing to take that action. So imagine if one time per day you decided, I'm going to contact somebody in my ideal target market. So I don't care what business you're in, whether you're a speaker and a coach, you're a financial advisor, entrepreneur. Imagine if you work 200 days and you show up 200 times and you remove your emotion from the result, and your only focus is, I'm going to find an intentional way to make myself unique and different to contact this individual. You do that 200 times, Kristen, you know it. You and I have been coaching for a long time. If you do something 200 times, you will not go 0 for 200. It's not even possible. You will not go 0 for 200. And a lot of the individuals that we do our coaching work with, it's one of the primary disciplines they do every day because it keeps them challenged and it keeps them in an ideal market.
And it keeps them moving forward. They're taking a step every day. So this is something you can do no matter what happens to your day, whatever blows up, because I know you do too. I get frustrated when people are like, oh, well, my appointment's canceled, or I was supposed to see this person and they rescheduled. I'm like, that doesn't mean your day is shot. I mean, there's still always stuff. And I feel like the best and most successful people are the driven ones that when something's not on the calendar or something goes wrong, they take that +1 concept or something and they just keep moving forward. They do something with the downtime.
Yeah, everybody's going to be, we've all heard it. You're going to get dealt lemons. And especially if you're in sales, I mean, especially financial services, it is such a high rate of challenge and adversity. It is tough to get up off that mat of life. But getting up off that mat of life is a choice. And the moment you get lemons, you can't just make lemonade. You got to have a plan to execute to go sell the heck out of it.
Yep.
And people, that's where they forget. I got lemons. I'm going to go make the lemonade, but you better go do something with that lemonade. Don't just go make the lemonade.
Right. Right. And you've got to, like you said, you've got to sell, you've got to get out there. And a lot of times most of the time we're selling ourselves. I don't care what your product or your service is, it's you. It's the person, they're buying you and what you have to offer and what you can bring to the table. So I feel like over the years, Ben, you've done a good job with that because you do tend to weave, you're certainly a performance coach and work with all these people, but at the heart of it, your why is kind of the legacy that you're leaving, not just to honor your mom, but that you're leaving for your family. Because I know you're a big family man as well. So, I mean, how does that play into your business life and what you're building with your company and with your clients? What is the family intersect? Because I'm a working mom, single mom, so I think my dynamics are a little different than a lot. But I appreciate so much the fact that that's a big part of your life and your business. And I don't know if you know this, but we don't see men that are at high levels kind of talking about it and embracing that the way you do.
So once again, I think it comes down to choice. And, we have a choice to either choose balance or to not choose balance. And a lot of authors and speakers and coaches that do the work that we do, they choose to put stories or articles out there that say, you know what, we're in a different world these days and balance doesn't exist. You just work really, really hard and take time off. And, it's really easy. And I'm not going to hold back on this answer because I think it's important. A lot of times people look at my life on social media and I may meet somebody out at a talk, let's say, and they're like, you must never be with your family, right? And that's how they approach me. Like, I bet you never see your family. And it's like, wait a second. Why don't you ask me how important balance is?
Yeah, because I see the opposite. And maybe it's because I know you, but I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a big part.
What a lot of people don't realize, I literally schedule at the beginning of the year, it's almost 6 weeks where I'm doing nothing. I'm just with the family. 6 weeks. There's a lot of people who don't get 6 weeks vacation. I'm scheduling that off. It doesn't include a day here or a day there. So there's probably almost 2 months that I completely schedule off. And then when I'm home, many people know I get up at a crazy early hour, but the reason why I do that is because I travel so much. 6 a.m. in our house, that's when you start to hear the pitter patter. That's my kids' feet. So my routine has to be done. My time in the Bible, my workouts, my messaging to clients, organizing my day so that at 6 o'clock, I can make the kids breakfast, spend time with the kids, hang out with the kids, help get them dressed, take them to school. And then my first call of the day is at 8:15. And that's the first critical call to Anna on our team to get organized for the day. And then I'm with clients starting at 8:30. And on most days, I'm picking up my kids at 3:30, 4, 4:30, 5 o'clock at the latest. Yet what I'm able to accomplish between 8:30 and whenever I pick them up, it would typically blow people's minds. I mean, I could have 8, 9 coaching calls, but I'm very, very efficient with time because I want to have that balance. So if I have to make a sacrifice that I've got to be on point, locked in for, that specified number of hours, I'm going to do it because when I pick up my kids, I want my day to be done. I want to just be locked in and focused on them.
And I'm glad to hear you say that because it is a misnomer to a lot of people that they think, man, he's traveling here or flying here, he's on this jet going here. And that's all true. But I think a lot of times people don't see the behind the scenes. Because I'm the same way. People ask me all the time, how in the world do you balance a business, 3 kids, being a single mom? They're like, how do you get it all done? And I'm like, well, first of all, what choice do I have? Because these are all things I've chosen. I chose to have 3 children. I chose to run a successful business. I love the time with my clients, but I'm like you. It's very when I'm on, I'm on. So if it is between the workday after the kids are off to school and before they get home, laser focus is really what comes to mind, because you got to dial in and know exactly what you're getting done. We learned a concept when we were back in finance, the posting and planning, and I still do that. At the end of every day, I'm looking at the next day, and I've got all the white space in my calendar filled up. I know exactly what I'm doing, what to-dos I'm getting to, what content I'm creating. But you know that ahead of time, and I feel like that's the planning and the execution piece that a lot of people miss.
And that's where I think it comes down to, you're either going to choose to be organized or to not be organized. And if you're organized and your schedule's ready for the next day and you have your to-do list and you know what you're going to attack for that day, it's easy to attack one thing at a time. If you're disorganized and you don't necessarily know what direction you're going to take, or if you get thrown off, what's my next action step going to be? It's hard to be efficient. Yep. So you have to be organized. And I remember one of the great leaders we used to work with, John Qualley, he used to say to us all the time when we were both at that Fortune 100 financial firm, he used to say to us all the time, you got to have organized chaos.
Yep.
And that's really it, right? It just organize your chaos.
And that keeps you from getting distracted, because I feel like when you don't have a plan, it's very easy for things to creep in, for distractions to creep in, and things that honestly aren't pushing you towards your goals or pushing you towards the things you're trying to accomplish. It gets jumbled in there if we're not really knowing what we're going after. So switching gears a little bit, what's exciting for you right now? What's the thing you're most excited about with everything that the Ben Newman companies have going on?
So I'm really excited. Over the last 2 years, we've really been able to implement and develop additional touches and outreach. So, everything used to just be me, right? Somebody called and I was doing the coaching and I was doing the speaking. And now we have a gentleman named Drew Gurley. We've got about 20 speakers, where if I'm unavailable for an event or there's another reason why we can't make it work, there's other speakers that we partner with. We're part of a small bureau that Drew runs. And then we have a whole coaching practice. There's 8 coaches in addition to myself. That Jeremy Patty, an old friend of ours. Years ago, he runs that out of Dallas, Texas. So the ability to not have to say no, it's one of the biggest struggles that I had. And it's the lesson I would share with everybody, is build an environment where you can focus your days on working with exactly who you want to work with, but don't put yourself in a position where you have to say no. And that's really what I wanted to do, was create more leverage, right? We all can look at ourselves as a CEO and say, okay, if I want to touch or have the opportunity to make an offering or to help every person that calls, even if I can't do it myself, are we set up that way? 2 years ago, we weren't. Today, we are.
Right.
So it's great to be able to touch everybody and to grow, that opportunity to help people connect to their legacy.
Well, and that, I was about to say that it continues your mission of moving towards legacy, creating your own, but helping people create theirs as well. And I feel like when businesses scale, because we've both been, coaching and consulting about the same amount of time, and it naturally evolves. And I think everything new I've launched, and I'm sure the same for you, has been around the fact that, it's either not my specific area, or I don't want to say no to this person. I want to be able to help this person. So what can we create that can be an extension of our companies to be able to do that? So that's fantastic. Just being able to broaden your reach a little bit more. So awesome. So, all right, question for you. I know you said that's what you're most excited about. What's next?
So the big goal for us is serving 1 billion people. So nice. if people ever ask me my big focus, and I've been saying this for years, it's to serve 1 billion people. And I remember one time somebody asked me, I said, well, but how do you define that? And this is really what drives me every day. It's my purpose fuels this desire to get there. And people say, how will you know? Like, how do you measure something like that? And for me, I don't know how many of your clients are using the +1, or, the coaching clients that we're touching every day. Like, all of that adds up to that 1 billion.
Yep.
And for me, I'm going to be 72 years old. I'm going to be sitting on a beach. I'm a warm weather guy, and I'm going to be smoking a cigar. That's my big vice. Although I gave them up about 4 months ago, but I'll probably get back to having one every now and again.
You're not a quitter. You got to get.
I'm going to be smoking a cigar, and I'm going to be drinking a Budweiser. I'm going to be on the beach. I'm going to be 72 years old, and this little bird is going to come down from heaven, and this bird's going to wink, and the bird's going to be God sending my mom down to let me know that we hit the 1 billion. So it's, as crazy as that sounds, that's this vision that I've had.
It's a cool little vision, though.
Well, the harder we work, I'm hoping we move it up from 72. But that's what I see. So if you say, what's the next big thing? It's fighting for that every day. And I'll
Yeah.
tell you a funny story. I was working with a boxer who was preparing for a championship fight. He was away for training camp, tough time with his daughter. And he said, how do, like, my kids, like, I want my kids to always know why I'm gone. And I said, well, even if my kids don't understand it, this was a few years ago, I always explain to them the reason why I'm gone. And so then I tell him that story, and I hang up the phone, and my daughter comes up to me and she goes, Daddy, don't you know that birds don't have eyelids? I said, Kennedy, I said, this is my story and my vision. That bird has eyelids.
That's right. That's it. I get to create this. So,
so
I love it.
I think, for everybody, like, don't let somebody, help you make your vision smaller. Go be the person that you want to be. Go write the story that you want to write. Live for your purpose. Live for the right reasons. Fight and take everything that God's given you and just go give your best every day, and you're going to write one heck of a story.
Completely agree. Couldn't have said it better. So we're going to take a short break, and when we come back and wrap up our time with Ben, we're going to come up with a challenge for the listeners to make sure we take all this great stuff and be able to implement it in your lives. We'll be back in just a few. Hey everyone, check out my podcast, No Limits with Kristen Andre, on Tuesday nights at 7:30. We will tackle the things holding you back and the limits you set on yourself and equip you with some strategies to lead more intentional lives. Podcast launches every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. on facebook.com/Andre Group. That's facebook.com/ANDREE Group. We'll see you there. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to No Limits with Kristen Andre. We are wrapping up our time with Ben Newman. So, Ben, first of all, thank you so much for being with us today, because I think you've got such great insight, and it's so cool to watch how your coaching career and your practice and all the legacy you're leaving, just how it's growing and continue to grow. I get excited when people I know and people I like and just know they're good guys are like, man, he's really crushing it, which is cool. So, first of all, congratulations.
Let me thank you very much. And let me say, I'm grateful for you welcoming me on, because for me, life is about relationships. And how cool is it that literally 15 years ago we meet, and here we are today. You're chasing your passion. I'm chasing my passions. We're encouraging others to chase theirs. And so, relationships is what it's all about. So it's great to be with you and all your listeners.
Totally. Thank you so much. Yeah, I agree. I'm a big relationship person. I feel like in business, we don't put as much stock in that, I think, as we used to. We think so much about, numbers and growing and this and that. And it really is the relationships that grow and that matter. It's I get to be friends, as I know you do, with a lot of your clients. And that's why we're getting, these phone calls and these, not even bad phone calls. The phone calls like, hey, I just did this, or you get a text like, you won't believe what just happened. That's why I do this. And I'm sure a lot for you is just to see how people grow. And I think that's the relationship speaks to that. Awesome. So before the break, we were talking about kind of your really stepping out, and whether it's business or sports, and just trying to do something different, to keep going, to keep moving when things get down. So talk to us a little bit about what advice you'd give the listeners, whether no matter what career they're in, just to keep moving forward and to do the things that they need to be doing.
So one of the messages that we've been sharing that's really resonating in the world of business and in sports is what we like to call standard over feelings. Not allowing your feelings to dictate how you show up, but living to that standard every single day. So I would encourage everybody, take 20 minutes, take 30 minutes, right? Maybe that's the challenge that we can put out for everybody, is to take 20 or 30 minutes and break down your last 30 days, break down your last 90 days. Break down the most successful period of time you've had in the last 12 months. And what exactly was it that made you successful during that period of time? And identify what it looks like for you to show up and to give your best every day. That's the standard.
Okay.
And far too often, we work with individuals. You could call it the process or the action steps, the daily disciplines. Far too often, we allow our feelings to dictate how we show up. Kristen, don't you see what I sold yesterday? Biggest case of my life. Why do I need to work today? Heck, I'll take the rest of the week off. No. You shouldn't allow yesterday or what you think is going to happen tomorrow to define how you show up today. And one of my favorite stories, it's a client that allows me to share the story. His name is Claudio. And, Claudio is driven by extreme purpose and belief. I mean, he's first generation. His parents were immigrants from Brazil. And he's a guy who's just driven by extreme passion and purpose for this business. And I remember starting coaching with him. He was selling $700,000-$800,000 a business. Now he does a couple million. And a year ago, we're down in Orlando. We're driving in the car. And I said, Claudio, man, what makes you great? What makes you great? I love asking top performers, what makes you great? It's a fascinating question because you learn a lot.
Yeah.
And he said, he goes, that's an easy answer. He said, if I sell something that makes me a big commission yesterday, or I may have 5 really big opportunities tomorrow, he said, neither of those dictate how I show up. He says, if I don't do the work that I said I was going to do today, the guilt that I live with is too much for me to handle. I would rather just do the work.
Oh, I like that.
That to me is standard over feelings. He's saying, I'm fueled by belief, I'm fueled by a passion, and I got to show up and do my work every day. So that's the challenge I would have for everybody. I've given you my heart. Yeah. I know we're new friends, so I hope you don't mind me challenging you. But that would be the challenge that I would have, is to say, hey, take 20, 30 minutes, identify. Audio knows what his standard is. What's your standard? What do your best days look like? And run a 7-day test. And if you run a 7-day test on what it looks like for you to be your best personally, professionally, and maybe given just a little more of yourself, a service-based piece, loving on people a little more, do that for 7 days. Build those new disciplines. That'll be your standard. You'll set yourself up for your best year ever.
I 1,000,000% agree. And I love, like you said, the way Claudio put it is that, because he is a good performer. I know him, and it's the day. It's what you're in the day. And I see so many people, I used to refer to it as fat, dumb, and happy syndrome. You had something so great happen. You're like, I'm going to coast for the rest of the week or the month, or I've seen people do it for longer than that. But it's just getting into the daily disciplines of what would make today great. I love the way you phrase that, though. And not just about work, like you said, family, relationship.
That's the way he phrased it.
I think it's awesome. Exactly I think Claudio coming in with a home run here. I like it. I like it. So I think that's a great challenge for our listeners. So Ben, we have a group on Facebook. It's at #NoLimitsMoment. And our listeners come there, and that's where they go and share, we share our challenge, and we want them to be able to engage because, we have people that we work with, we have coaching clients, and we each, I'm sure, have coaches, and then we want a place for people to be able to come if they don't have that accountability, or they, like you said, you don't want to say no to anybody. So our group on Facebook is at #NoLimitsMoment. We'll post this clip, but that's a great challenge. So repeat for them what you want them to do for this next 7 days.
So spend 20 or 30 minutes and go and find whether it happened in the last 30 days, whether it's been happening in the last 90, a specified period of time where you knew you were showing up and giving your best, and identify and write down what did your daily behaviors look like during that period of time, right? Maybe it's a number of phone calls you were making in your business. Maybe it was I was consistently showing up for my workouts, and go and define what that standard is for you, right? So the standard is, if I work out and I tell myself food is fuel and I break a sweat every day. For me, I call them points of contact rather than phone calls. A point of contact, text message, email, phone call. 20 points of contact a day in my business, letting the world know I'm open for business. That's me giving my best. And you know what? I'm going to do something random for somebody else today. Just a random act of kindness.
Nice.
And you figure out what your process or your standard is. Do it for a 7-day period of time. And I'm talking about whatever it takes. Just doubt your doubts, believe your beliefs, show up and do the work. It's all in your control. And I think it'll really blow your mind how you feel about yourself knowing you've given it your best. And it'll set you up for new habits for your best year ever.
Love it. Absolutely love it. So join us at #NoLimitsMoment on Facebook. Let us know what you're doing. We'd love to support you and love to kind of help that. I'll go on there myself and come up with what my day looks like and what those habits I'll keep doing. And I've already got some that I know I do, but I think it's a great reminder to keep challenging and thinking in different areas as well, like your random act of kindness. So I think it's fantastic. Ben, thank you so much. I am so honored to have you here. I'm so excited to see you continue to grow like this, and your family is growing and they're adorable as anything. So you keep them first and foremost, as you always do. So
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a two-way street. I feel the same about your success and the impact you're having, and everybody just keep taking it one day at a time. Thanks for listening.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. And until next week, keep pushing past those limits.